Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
So, Bishop, you notice that there was no opening credits this morning. That's only because the guest that we have, we want to give him every single second that we can give him. That's what I'm going with, and that's what we're going to use.
Whatever you say, overseer. But I think I know far better. So
Oh,
if you want to convince yourself of that, between you and the producer, our heads will be rolling.
no one, no one will know the better or the worse. No one will know any difference. They're going to come in soon, and they won't know. They're going to be like, did we miss the credits? I'm going to say, yeah, you missed the credits. Why did you miss the credits?
Well, I want to say welcome everyone to another edition of the Bad Man Show. Here you have myself, along with Overseer Rupert Johnson, and this is the Bad Man Show. I want to welcome you all to come in and join us for the next 45 minutes. We're just so
Amen.
thankful and we're so grateful to have you. One of the first things that I want to do, though, before Overseer goes right ahead and get us started on the show, I want to show you that I got my.
Uh-oh.
Oh my
Uh-oh.
goodness! My
Uh-oh.
Batman show.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I want a close up here for you to see the design of the polo. This is the much better than what Overseer done last week. Just want to make it clear. You need to get it's no buttoned up. It's let me demonstrate. It's zip down and zip up. Oh, this is a much better model than what you actually saw a couple weeks ago.
Bishop, don't let me go upstairs and go get some stuff.
All right, Overseer. So what is it that we're talking about today?
Today we are going to focus on an issue that I think that we've gone through, a lot of people have gone through, and that we want to touch base on today. But I know that I am actual third generation pastor. My grandmother was a pastor, my father was a pastor, and now I'm sitting here before you as a pastor. But I did not have the transition from my father to me was not smooth. There was some bumps and some things we had to go through, because the succession plan, even though it might have been there in the spiritual world, it wasn't really there written on any paper to say this is exactly what's going to go on. And so I had my issues with my succession to become pastor of Roman Pentecostal Church. And I'm sure you have your own story.
So, Overseer, let me get this straight. Let me get this straight so that the audience can understand. Now, you are the bishop's son.
Yes.
The bishop's son.
Yes.
And you are trying to tell me and the audience that you had issues with the transition. So now, how do you think, what you think someone like me, who's not a bishop's son, how you think my transition was? If yours was 10, mine had to be like 100 as far as being challenging and difficult.
Oh, that's what you're going to go with. You're going to go that it was challenging and difficult just because you weren't a bishop's son. Okay, I'll say possible. But remember, everybody's like preacher's kids. Preacher's kids always don't get the best benefit of the doubt. Just want to remind you of that. Preacher's kids don't get the benefit of the doubt. But what? So Bishop. So that's the being story. What do you think is the issue? Why don't these churches get succession plans?
Because it's difficult. That's plain. It's difficult, and to be honest, in my opinion, the challenge is those leaders may not want to face folks leaving or folks being upset with the choice or the decisions that that they plan to make. But there is, from my experience, I think that the best thing to do is to have one, and who stays stays, who leaves, but at least it makes it easier on the incoming pastor, because at least they would not have to deal with any kind of dissension when the decision is being made.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to say is then that I said I heard a little feedback from my end. Let me make sure I turn that off. So what I'm going to say is that we need to have somebody who is expert at this and bring them in and let them kind of discuss this with us all. Would we not agree?
I would agree with you,
And you know
definitely.
what?
And at least we can ask the primary question: why are you doing at least this at this time, and what are your we could really get some insight as to the decisions being made and what's really prompting it.
So I think that we should bring in this expert of experts, I'm going to say. And it's a good friend of ours, well known, no other person than Bishop Lorenzo Stokes. Praise God from
Praise the Lord.
Virginia.
Praise the
Bless
Lord,
you.
Bishop Stokes.
Bless you too. Well, you all are something. I can say that. And both of you have had your experience and succeeding whoever was before you. And
Yes.
I know personally that it was not easy. It was not easy.
Well, Bishop, before you even jump into at least what we the questions that we're going to ask in regards to that, we want you to introduce yourself to the audience, because there might be someone who is not affiliated with UCJC, and they're joining today. So if you could just please at least share a little bit about yourself personally, your ministry, and whatever you have can give us briefly, because we got some tough questions for you tonight.
Well, number one, I fall in the same category as Rupert. I'm a preacher's kid. Okay. And preacher's kids are expected to do no wrong, cross every T and dot every I. I'm not a firm believer that the successor should be the preacher's kid or a family member if they are not qualified. Okay, and I will address that later. But personally, I was raised apostolic. My father started at the Way of the Cross, and then he came out of the Way of the Cross, and he founded our church, which is United Bible Way Temple, which is non-affiliated with Bible Way Worldwide. I grew up in that church, and I grew up apostolic. I grew up with hang-ups. I grew up with some legalism. And when I went to college, all that just went down the drain. My parents didn't know what they were doing. They sent me to Norfolk State, 18 years old, with my own car, my own apartment.
Wow.
And and disaster just hit. All of a sudden, my DNA was no longer controlled by the holiness of my home. I was free. I was free, and it was rather challenging. And from college, left early because of the fact they were drafting me, and I went in and volunteered and did my time and came back out. Professionally, I worked in Newport News Shipyard, which is the largest shipyard in the world. We build all the aircraft carriers and submarines, and I worked my way from a key punch operator until when I retired after 36 years. I was up a manager the month I retired. But I learned in that process what team means. I understood that I retired as a network field engineer supervisor, but I understood my weaknesses, and I surrounded myself with my weaknesses. And that made me look like I was smarter than what I was, But professionally, I brought that mentality into the church when I started. So when it comes to ministry, I started with my father. I was his organist for years, but then straight away. And when I came back, there's a whole conglomerate of stuff that happened. And I'll talk about that a little later in this, of where one of the key words I want to share with you all in the beginning here is the word boundaries and process.
Okay.
The words boundaries and process, because zeal and ambition can destroy a person and bring harm to those that they're supposed to be helping because of zeal and ambition.
Bishop, one question here that I need clarification on before as you proceed. You said your dad. Could you kind of make a distinction between your birth father and Bishop Colanda? Because sometimes when you say your dad, there are individuals who have been around you long enough or been around you for someone, they think you may be talking about Bishop Colanda.
Okay, I'm presently talking about, now I found out when I got older that where I was raised was not my biological. That I found out that I was given to them by my mother at 2 hours old.
Ooh. Wow.
Okay, now I didn't find out any of this until late in life. I've been in college, I've been in the Army, and it really surfaced when my late wife Alita died, and I had realized then that I had been adopted. And then by the time my mother got ready to pass, I talked to her about my adoption papers, and that's when the truth came. That they never adopted me. My mother gave me to them at 2 hours old and promised that she would never come into my life to be a disturbance if they would agree. They gave me, my mother said, that raised me, said, and when it was time for me to go to school, I went to school a year late because they couldn't find birth records. And so they went to court, and the court said, since you've been having him this long, they gave me their name.
Oh, okay.
So that was quite an ordeal too to go through. But my father that raised me was a hard worker. He was a hard worker, and I watched what he did for the church. And he would do things. He was everything. He drove the bus. Whatever it took to make sure that church stayed operational. That's what he did. That has been my DNA since I've been in ministry. Whatever it takes. I have no problem scrubbing floors. I have no problem sanitizing, because that's all part of serving. My problem was we got to a point of where I started attending seminary, and they weren't too hooked on the seminary part. Okay, they weren't hooked on that, and I saw, after I started attending seminary, I started seeing a different view of things. I started questioning what was legalism. Where did you get scripture for this stuff? So I'm started running into some situations, and my father, this is why I said set boundaries. My father and I had a talk about it, and I suggested, I had 2 aunts that would testify. They take up every Sunday morning service. Nobody else get nothing to say. And their little group would shout with them, okay? And I told my dad, I said, Dad, I know why people don't want to hear you when you get up to preach, because they done heard 2 sermons. And I said, well, here's what we should do. I said, Dad, we should have praise and worship, let you preach, let them testify at night. I said, I even talked to a lady, and she's willing to take the children to the children's church. And my dad said, boy, that sounds good. I said, well, Dad, I think we ought to try it. He said, boy, it sounds good. That was Saturday night we had the conversation. Sunday morning is where I blew it and did not realize it till years later. Okay? My father had passed when I realized the mistake I made. I got up on that Sunday morning and said, let me make this special announcement. There would be no testimony service this morning. And so, as you can imagine, tongues were everywhere. Everybody speaking in tongues. And I said, Sister Langston is taking the kids in the back. And while this is going on, Diggins come up in the pulpit and to tap me on the shoulder. And I said, what's the problem? Your father wants to see you. Hey, Dad and I talked. I ain't got nothing to worry about. So I went to the back and I said, yes, sir. Boy, what have you done? I go, uh-oh. I said, what we talked about. You must have misunderstood me. Go back out there. Needless to say, nobody testified that morning. And the preacher that preached, he preached on me. And he's been preaching from Romans 8. Therefore, there is no condemnation. He never got to that. He got to some folks them going to these schools and coming up here, come in the pulpit with a notebook. The Bible already a notebook. Yeah, that went on for about 40 minutes. My father didn't stop it. But immediately after that, I no longer was the organist of the church. I didn't teach. I didn't pray. I was allowed to sit in the pulpit, but I did not do anything.
All right.
Okay, didn't do anything.
Wow.
So now, Bishop, let's get into this succession thing.
Okay.
What over here? Because I know you got a question for the bishop.
Yeah, so Bishop, in many discussions with you over the years, I guess it's more so, with you and Paul. No, we already asked that. So do you recall the number? No, we already called that one. So let me just ask this question, Bishop, when it comes to succession, because I'm not sure where we are on that list of questions. So this is my question. When did you figure out that there was a succession plan for you? And I'm talking about the scope of spirituality, because I know for me, there were times when I said, I'm not going to be a pastor. I'm not going to do this. But then suddenly there was a time when I said, you know what? I am. And I'm probably going to take over this. When was there a time for you that you knew that there was going to be a succession plan, even though there wouldn't be maybe a written one, but there was a spiritual one?
Well, let me just back up to how I got in ministry, and I'll take you there. I went to my father and I told him, Dad, I believe the Lord is calling me into the ministry. I'm waiting for my father to shout and get happy and speak in tongue. He does not do that. What he does is look me in my face and say, when your lifestyle come up to the qualifications for a mentor, then you and I will have this conversation. Was I hot? I was mad. But as time went on, I realized that he was absolutely correct. That even though I had the calling, my lifestyle at that time did not meet the qualifications. What made me start looking at succession plans was when I pastored the Baptist church for 6 years. I was candidate number 55.
Wow.
They had gone through 54 people when I came about, and I came about because of the fact that I was supposed to be running revival for them, but their number one candidate got sick, and they asked me to fill in for the month of December. And at the end of the month of December, they asked me in January if I could put in a resume. I checked with my pastor. My pastor checked with Bishop Senior. And Bishop Senior, y'all know how he talks. Let the boy go. He's still going to be under us in case they have a problem. Who knows? He might be able to help them. What I learned there for those 6 years, and then went back to help my father-in-law, Bishop Calander, prior to me launching the church in Hampton, we had in our bylaws in the beginning, in the inception, a succession plan. I felt a need for it to be done. And seeing pastors dying, seeing pastors becoming sick, and nothing is in place, led me to know that, number one, as pastors, we cannot do ministry by ourselves. We burn ourselves out because we do all the preaching, we do all the teaching, but we say we have a staff. And we don't allow the staff to do anything. And that's why there's so much dissension of where, and when they hear the word, well, when you going to get your church, they are no ways ready for no church. Some of them are not even Sunday morning preachers. They're good Wednesday night and Friday night platform service, but they will take that and run. So when we went in, my first thing was to make sure that if anything happened to me, that the church could go on and could go on without having a lot of rigmarole going through it. And so therefore, my wife became my assistant pastor, and not because she was my wife, but because she qualified and she had my vision and she had my heart and she knew what I felt about church. And so she was actually in the bylaws as the assistant pastor. It was laid out that she would become the pastor for a year. And if she wanted to, she could go longer, but she would, if she decided not to, she would assist the church in helping find another person to succeed her.
So Bishop, you're in the process now. So walk us through how did you come to this selecting this individual that is gonna succeed you?
Dr. Howard came to us from UPC. He was a very skillful and knowledgeable young man in the word. He was going to school, working on his bachelor's. And what I saw in him was me. And one of the things I wanted to do was to make sure that he did not allow his ambitions and his zeal to duplicate what I did. Because of the fact, like I said, my father was deceased when I got it came to me that, Lewis, you was wrong as two left shoes to get up that Sunday morning and make that announcement. But number one, you weren't the shepherd. You weren't the shepherd. And so being that you want to shepherd, then you step past your boundaries, even though they were not spoken and not written. You went beyond and took over the pastor's job. And what you created and what you went through, you brought on yourself by allowing your ambition and your zeal and your advancement to get ahead of you and God. I saw that in him. I saw the dedication. He was moved by my humbleness. And that's one of the key things that he said. I've never seen a man in your position with the title that you hold to be this humble. Anybody can talk to you. In fact, people wouldn't even know that you were a vice bishop or a bishop if nobody tells them. So I saw that in him. I saw his love for God, his love for the people. I started encouraging him to go forward. Boy, did he go forward. He went forward. He went forward. He ended up now with 2 masters and a doctorate of ministry, all from Liberty. Okay. Now we're in this process. I announced now he's my son-in-law. But here's what I want to clarify. I announced that he would be my successor before he became my son-in-law. So now I don't have to worry about nobody telling me you just did this because of the fact he's your son-in-law. No, him and my daughter were not even an item. When I made that announcement to the church that the Lord had planted in the church among us a successor that could take the church forward.
Hold on, Bishop. Hold on. I have a question to ask you, but I got to say this first. Anybody, if you have any question or comments, please write your question or comments down for Bishop Stokes. I got a question. You said you announced that he was going to be your successor to the church. When?
2 years ago.
So 2 years before you were going to retire from pastoring and go into the next season of your spiritual life, you announced him as your successor, and there was no anybody coming at you or no issues going on. No one said anything. Everybody was like, okay, great.
I had a couple questions. I had a couple questions that was asked me, but what was asked was not that he shouldn't be. Because see, even though academically and biblically he's sound, he's a great teacher and preacher, what I have to work with is not his academic scholastic part. What I have to work on is the part that's not taught in seminary. And that is how to be a leader and how to be a pastor. Some of the questions when we are going through, we're in phases going through, how do you handle criticism? How do you handle stress? What frustrates you? What angers you? What are your responses to this? These type of things that we have to do. I'm working with him like what we did for the first 3 months of this year. He did most of the preaching. I preach once a month because what I'm trying to do is lessen me so they can start getting accustomed to the new voice that they will hear. Okay. And I told him also, we're not going to implement a whole lot of changes. But the changes that we feel that we can implement, it is better that we implement them while I'm here to support you so that it is not all of a sudden when I leave, they're saying you bring about changes. So we're instituting small groups. I support that. The church know I support that. And so my situation, I got told by a person that said they've been apostolic all their life when I made the announcement to the church, and they said, I've never in my life heard nobody get up and say who their successor was in an apostolic church. And I think what we have to understand is if God sent us help, and when he does, I think as pastors, we got to stop getting intimidated by the help he sends. There's no use of asking God to send me help and send me doctors to help me to minister to this community. And when they come, because people enjoy their preaching and their style and their message, that all of a sudden we demote them. Won't be happening here.
So, Bishop, you're not saying that pastors are intimidated by the help that comes in. That's the reason why they're holding on to the reins of the pastoralship.
No, I talked to some other friends of mine on why they hold on. Some of them have not built within their system a financial mechanism that will support them if they're not preaching. And so, I had a friend of mine, sick. He couldn't walk to the other side of the car. I'm not getting sick, but out of breath. And I asked him, why don't you retire? He said, I can't. If I retire, I don't get paid. So there's built within this thing. I think we have to look at church differently. Both of you are young. Rupert is the youngest. There has to be a plan for him to be taken care of when he steps down. And not only him, but also his wife. That has to be built in. We have to change the culture. This is one of the things I want to do. I retire. And I'm not quitting ministry. I want to go around to the churches and help pastors and their staffs to understand, and their churches, we need to change the culture of thinking that the only person that's important in that ministry is the senior person. Mm. And see, that's one of the things I ran into was we got associate ministers, and I train my ministers to come to church to prepare to preach every Sunday. That's required. What that is a disciplined study habit that I'm enforcing, because all of us will preach when Pastor Rupert says, Stokes, you preaching Sunday. I'm going to be ready for Sunday because, it's been 2 years, and I'm going to be ready for Sunday. But after Sunday, I go back into that same slope. This way, being prepared to preach every Sunday, that means you got to study and do sermons every week. Now, what do we have to understand is they make me who I am. They cover, just like in my secular job, though I was a hardware man, I knew fiber, I knew Cisco, I knew those type of things, but I was not a software person. So I circle myself with software people. And so we were a team that functioned. The church has to understand that as pastor has a team. He has to see that he has a team. To keep from burning out, he need to delegate some things to his team with boundaries. With boundaries. You got to set boundaries, because if you don't, they'll go across it. But not only do you set ministerial boundaries, you have to set spiritual boundaries.
All right.
Okay. Those are the things that you have to do. One of the biggest things I had, even with my father, and it was process. I had a problem with process because, hey, I've been to school, man. Do you see these degrees? Do you see these degrees? These degrees tells me that I know what I'm doing. And I told the church the other week that, yes, I got degrees, and it's good that you get them, but the only thing it proves that you're able to pass an academic exam. It does not mean that you're able to put it into application. And so when we go to school, and we have to make sure that we have somebody that's around us that can keep us humble and bring us to ourselves. Because if not, we don't want to do the process. I already been to school. I don't want to go through this. I already know how. No, you don't. And so therefore, I had a problem with process. Now, you all remember Bishop Francisco. He preached for us at Convocation in Hampton. His daughter took his place. She's 32 years old. Okay. She said she's got her DM from Duke University. She said she hated the process. She hated it from day one all the way through. But now she appreciates the process because she would not be able to handle what's going on there if she had not gone through it. Those are the things that, as I think, that I need to be able to do when I step down from my day-to-day function as pastor, is to be of a blessing. See, I'm doing it while I'm still healthy. I'm not doing it while I'm sick. I'm doing it while I'm still healthy. I can be of a great resource to him. Still, the church sees that I'm in support of him. That's another thing I think as pastors, we have to make sure that the church understands that we are in support of who we said taking our place. Because see, this is what I told the church. On September the 18th after 10 o'clock, don't call me. Okay, don't call me, because I am not the senior pastor. In fact, I have to address Dr. Howell as senior pastor. So I have to remove my shoes and everything about me out of the pulpit so that he can stand in his shoes. He's not coming in there to stand in my shoes. He has his own gifting. He has his own calling. And if we keep ourselves in that pulpit, we will make it very, very difficult for those who will succeed us. And that's what sometimes, Rupert, you said you went through. Sometimes family members and long-standing members will keep the predecessor in that pulpit and not allow the successor an opportunity to function with his gifts or her gifts and callings.
So overseer, you see what Bishop is saying, overseer. Since our pastor, who we succeeded, didn't put the thing in place, you and we got to make sure that we put the process in place. Yeah. So the question is, are you ready?
Who, me? I've already started that process. I've done something that the church never had before. You know, I created an assistant pastor that when I'm not there, that she would be working in the capacity of pastoring. So I've already started that process in a way, and then I'll put some more things together. I have to go a slow grind. You'd have to know how to put the slow grind. So I'm doing a slow grind right now. but Bishop, so Bishop Art, are you ready? You're asking me. Are you ready? Are you ready?
And I think what has to happen, you do have to have a process. You do have to have a process if you don't have the person. Okay, if you don't have the person, you still have to have the process. Right. And I've asked all the pastors in my diocese, give me your succession plan.
Ooh.
Okay.
Overseer, my
Give me,
goodness.
yeah,
Whoa,
give me
whoa.
your succession
But,
plan
but, but,
because it helps us, those of us, when we come in to be of assistance to you. Now, my home church, Faith Temple, since Bishop died, that church has split 7 times. There's 7 different pastors that's there. The young man that's there now came from me, and he has been there, how long? About 2 years, about 2 to 3 years. In fact, they even asked me if I would come in as interim pastor. And I turned it down, and he went and he took care of it. And that's because there was nothing in place. There's nothing in place whatsoever. And I told them that until you all they asked me to be their spiritual advisor. So I told them, until you get Bishop's shoes out of the pulpit, you won't get a pastor. Because everybody that's coming, you want them to function
like
like
Bishop.
Bishop did. And that means that they can't be themselves.
That's true. So a lot of it then really is dependent upon the current pastor. So overseer, I can't ask our pastors in our diocese for a plan until I get one. I got that. I beg your pardon?
I said, that's it. That's true.
That's it, huh? Well, it looks like I only got a couple more years.
But let's ask this, Bishop Stokes, because you talked about process, and we don't have a long time. Again, if you have any questions, I know there's a lot of information, but if you have any questions, please send your questions in right now for Bishop Stokes so that we can put them out there. Just write them in the comment section. Also, like and subscribe us on Facebook and YouTube, please. We're trying to reach 200 people before the end of the summer. So, Bishop, you talk about this process, and you talked about pastors not willing to let go. Let's say you're a pastor who has a process. You create a successor, but you really didn't let go. You're still looked at as the leader, and instead of you, like you said, say, hey, don't call me, you still answer questions. You still try to put your footprint in the door. How would you suggest to that predecessor you have to let go? Like what would be your suggestion?
Well, that's something that, and let me say, a question on Faith Temple didn't split. They got 7 different pastors that came out of there, that have come out of there since Bishop died. But one of the things that I think what happens is we have to understand, when I am no longer the senior pastor, then I can help my successor by not taking conversations. Don't call me. Okay, I'm gonna have to turn it down. We know it's going to take some time for people to get to absorb this new thing. Just like with me, I had some people call me to do a wedding, and I told him he got it. Okay, he has to get used to. Okay, the preaching is fine. Now these other things that come with it. A lot of the reason why successors do not have problems is because those that they precede, the predecessor refuses to turn loose. He liked that camaraderie that he's built. He liked that honor that when he walks in, everybody's at R. Okay, and he has had it so long until it's hard for him to humble himself or herself to release this. Now, what's happening is they're not going to dishonor you. You're still that same person. It is just that you do not function in that capacity, and you should not allow people to come to you as if that you still are. That's wrong to this successor. Don't call my number and ask me what you think I should do. Call him or call her.
Do you think, Bishop, it could also do with the fact that sometimes the predecessor has not found something else to replace? Because like you said, you already have an idea of what you're going to do. You're going to go around and help pastors with succession and with other things. It could be that you maybe, that the predecessor said, I don't know what else to do. I'm just sitting home. I don't know what else. I've been pastoring for so long. if I'm not pastoring, I don't know what to do. Would you suggest before you actually hand over the position, maybe you should make sure you have something
a
to fill the
process
void?
yourself? Yes, you should have a plan. Because I'm not pastoring doesn't mean I'm not doing ministry. I'm still going to do, and I had to tell somebody else that I'm still going to do ministry. Okay. I'm not just doing the day-to-day activities. I'm not that, but as far as ministry is concerned, I will be doing ministry until I close my eyes for good. Mm. But what happens is, as we have a problem with turning loose. We have a problem with turning loose because we've been there so long. And you're going to ask me, does this bother me? Does it affect me? Honest to goodness truth, being very transparent, it's a total shock to me. Okay, it's like, really? Am I really going to do this? What? You know, am I doing this? Is this the right time? Did I move ahead of God? I mean, I've been through questions since the thing is announced and everything is going in place. Now I'm questioning God. Okay, did I move ahead of you, Lord? Okay, did I move too soon? Because you know, if I did, you're gonna have to intervene. I can't do it now. Okay, but you know what? I don't feel that I've moved ahead of God. I think I moved in God's time.
Bishop,
I'm at peace with what's taking place. I'm at peace is what's taking place, and there's some things that we have to work out. But there's I'm at peace. I'm at peace with it until that time. I want to be of a greater help to him. I want to see him succeed. I think that's one of the problems that we have. We don't want to see the person outdo what we've done. Bishop Callahan taught me that if we don't out exceed him, he has failed as a leader.
Overseer, you got to squeeze this question, and we're running out of time. And we got one question. Please squeeze this one in.
Yeah, very quick, Pastor. Your daughter, Deborah Johnson, I don't want to leave her out because she's your spiritual daughter. I don't want her to be left out. You are good friends with her. So I want to make sure I got this question. Can a pastor have an assistant pastor who was a great assistant, but should never be the pastor? If so, is it wise to have a succession plan does not include this assistant pastor?
Now, everybody's succession plan does not include their assistant pastor. That was my choice. I pinned that in. The process is choosing a successor. Now, a person could be a good second, but not a first. And it does not lessen the person themselves. It's the position that they hold. Now, I did a thing with the coffee house on how to be a successful number two. How to be a successful number two. And one of the things I wanted them to understand is a number two has to make sure they have the heart and the vision for number one. And not only the number one, but also the number one's family. And even though they have ambitions and zeal, they must never allow that to get in the way of making sure the vision of number one is taken through. It's called humility. Now, because I function from the second chair doesn't lessen me as a person. My second chair is positional. It could be third, fourth, fifth, or sixth. And when I was in the concert band, I played trombone. I was in the number two chair. The number one chair needed the melody that I carried in order that his solo could be exceptional. So it didn't lessen me as a person. I think one of the things we have to understand is when we feeling roles in church that is positional and not personal, it don't make you a lesser person. So therefore, if we can get that instilled to them, then you do all you can to make sure that whoever is in number one or number two, whatever chair you're in, your job is to function in such a capacity that number one don't have to worry about what's happening with number two trying to get his job, or number two trying to get his number three trying to get two's job. That's not it. So you can set up your succession plan. I wrote mine out that my assistant pastor, it would fall in that sequence. So what I did to make sure that took place after, 2 years ago, I said he would be the successor, and he was just a minister on staff. He wasn't even assistant pastor. He just recently became the assistant pastor because of the fact when I said it was time for me to start stepping down and stepping back, my assistant pastor, who was supposed to be taking the church, told me, if you resign, I'm retiring with you. Okay,
Bishop. I mean, this is, oh my goodness, it's been a great conversation. It's a great conversation, Bishop. But we're out of time. My goodness.
What I say in the beginning.
Yeah, we're out of time. My goodness. We want to say to our guests, we thank you so much for being with us. These 45 minutes flew by. Again, we want to say thank you to Bishop Stokes. We truly appreciate him coming on. We got to get him back again. We got to get him back. Because there's much more that we need to pull out of him. And so we thank you so much, Bishop. God bless you. Overseer.
Hey, everybody, thank you so much again. Subscribe, like on Facebook and YouTube, and invite your friends. Tell somebody about us. The Bad Man Show. We're here, Bad Man for Christ, every Monday at 7:15. We appreciate you. We love you all. Have a great rest of the week, and see you next week at 7:15. Same place, same time. Bishop, thank you so much. Stick around, Bishop. Don't leave. We want to talk to you afterwards. Bishop,
God bless you. God bless you. All right, enjoy. See you next week.
So sing hallelujah, revive us again. So sing hallelujah, revive us again. Like you feel it, represent Jesus. To the